Are we done yet?
No.
How about now? Are we done now?
No.
What about now?
No.
Okay, one more time.
Attack on table.
Are we there yet?
We are. And where did we just arrive to, Ryan? What's the topic this week?
We're talking about how to start stopping your book. Where to start your story at its end, I guess.
Where to begin the end.
Yeah.
Right. And the rise and fall of the end. And eventually the fade away.
Conclusions.
Resolution.
Finality.
Absolve.
In.
Right.
Yeah, so we're talking about we're talking about the struggle of knowing when to shut up and let your story end. Like a good little story that it is. Failing a good proper ending ruins the flow and the desired outcome pretty recklessly. As you can see, it leaves things awkward, silences abound, questions arise, and everyone's just like, when is Ryan gonna stop talking? The answer to that is never, but Sean will cut me off at some point, and that would be a pretty good example of when I should stop talking. But I haven't yet because he hasn't said anything. So we're going to keep going and elaborate on what it is we're talking about today, which is how to end your story. Sean and I both hate when a story overstays its welcome.
We do, Ryan. We really do. As everybody just had to endure with me, you can absolutely let your ending overstay its welcome. That's another issue I think that we kind of want to address with this episode. And we do both hate when it takes too long for an ending to either get started or actually end. Finish up, stop writing, you're done with this draft or the final version or whatever. So, probably start with the issue of a story dragging on, and to just put all kidding aside and everything, what have you struggled with as far as like the overall plot with your high fantasy that you're writing that you are wondering, like, I'm done? What's keeping you from thinking that?
Well, I mean, if we're going to use my high fantasy as an example, I think it's more or less of like what feels satisfactory, because it's a lot going into it, and so you want to, I think in essence it's what we all kind of fear, especially like when we're telling what we feel is like a really good, important story. We want the ending to be as satisfactory as everything else that was in the story, and so we start like kind of building up this phantom in our heads of like, oh, it's not good enough, or this isn't explained, or something like that. And then you start running into these long run-on explanations of what happened afterward and all this stuff. And in some cases it works, in other cases you're just like, I just want the ending, just give it to me and I'll accept it. And that can be a hard measure. What do you kind of struggle with when you're writing?
Well, I would say with Bleeding the Divine, the biggest criticism that I remember getting was that the ending felt a little bit rushed, and I do remember thinking about endings when I had gotten to it, and how a lot of times they do feel anticlimactic, and you maybe don't get all the answers. You maybe don't, um, you know, draw everything out. Not everything has to be a, you know, 4 week long final battle or anything like that. And I just sort of threw my ending together with those ideas in mind. Good possibility I overcorrected, but it was my first novel. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I think we all kind of suffer from that, of just like never having ended something like that, not knowing if you did a good job, or if you know, did what you're supposed to do. And I think through the conversation you and I had building this particular episode, I kind of educated myself a little bit on some terminology that I think will probably help me moving in the future. I hope, you know, that it'll help other people who are watching this.
Yeah, there's some
And I
interesting
think
points.
I think a good key place to start is by defining what kind of ending you're looking for. And there's very few, but there are some categories of endings. And the list we have here is expanded or an epilogue. A good example of that would probably be something akin to Lord of the Rings, or any Tolkien work, where it just kind of explains what happens later.
Sure.
Tale of Two Cities, another good example. A tragic ending, a hopeful ending, circular, often called like a mirror ending, where kind of the ending kind of mirrors the beginning in some fashion. A resolved or resolution ending, an open ending, and a cliffhanger, which isn't exactly the same as an open ending.
There we have that
A good,
argument, and you won.
yeah, I would say a good description of the difference between an open and a cliffhanger is, if we kind of slip into cinema, like what they did in Inception.
Oh,
Yeah,
you were talking about Inception.
yeah, Inception is a great example of what an open ending is, where it's just unambiguous. It leaves a lot of questions unanswered for you to kind of insert your own interpretation into. And that's different than a cliffhanger. Cliffhanger is something more akin to what I would call like The Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
where it's like big information, no resolution on said big information, cut, move to the next story kind of thing.
Everybody will return for the next movie or book, and
Yeah.
all your questions will be answered, hopefully. I get that. Yeah, and I think that those are two relatively good examples to use as far as like defining open ending versus cliffhanger. Cliffhangers are best suited for stories that have sequels coming. So that's a great way to kind of bait everybody to want to wait and keep an eye out for what is coming afterward. Probably didn't have to tell anybody that, but the difference between it and an open ending, Ryan did have to convince me about. The other thing that I really want us to kind of tackle on this one, which I think is a quick point to make it and everything, is when to end everything. And with that question, the certain criteria need to be hit. You know, have you resolved your core conflict and everything? Then it's time to wrap it up. Even if you're going to do that expanded ending like what Tolkien did, he wasn't telling the examples of how everybody had done it at the same pace that he had told the rest of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You were crossing years in some cases, and vast distances to find out how everybody's particular story ended individually throughout. I don't even remember how long it took between uh, the destruction of the ring and Frodo and them leaving for Valinor. So knowing when to start that process is definitely something that I want us to address. But I feel like it's a quicker point that it wasn't worth making a video all on its own yet at this point. So we have common advice for both scenarios, and we can kind of jump into that now.
The first piece of advice that we see is resolve the core conflict. amazing, profound advice.
Right. Somebody thought long and hard about that one.
Yeah, resolve the thing that the thing is written about before you end it. Yes, that's a good advice. When the main question or narrative that is struggling is done, that's probably a good time to end your book.
Yep. Moving on. After the character arc is the next one, and I feel like that's a good, like, it's a decent enough one. If you, let's say you're writing a trilogy, yes, there's a main arc, but if you're writing the first book of the trilogy, some major changes have to happen to your character or your characters, whoever you're following throughout the story, but they have to go through a beginning to end change to some degree in that first book. And when that's over, that's probably when your first book should end. Innocence Lost is probably one of my favorites. Like, nothing's going to be the same type of mentality that they have to adopt by the end of that first story ending, and that's a good spot when they come to that realization to cut that one off and begin the second story.
Yeah, and also kind of when you do it that way, particularly like with Innocence Lost, that's a good way for you to kind of set up your next story, especially if you intend for like a darker follow-up, because once you've removed that naivety from your character, then you can kind of bring them back into the story with a little bit more edge, a little bit more keen to the world around them, and it will make sense, and it won't feel so out of the hat when it's a separate story.
Right.
Like if it's all in the same one, it can kind of rub people the wrong way, but like if you have that whole build up in your initial story and the second one, they feel more mature. It's generally a nicer thing. I would say that's pretty wrapped up. The third piece we saw is strap in, ladies and gentlemen. This one will blow you away. Avoid the rush ending. Don't drag it out, but don't stop too soon. You're welcome.
Right. Well, can't build on that one anymore.
Yeah.
I would like to actually leave that one alone because it's a personal attack.
It's useless.
And also useless. Because, you have to figure out what all you're trying to convey with your ending and everything too. It's done when it's done. But the ending type that we were talking about, if your story is getting back to the point where something that was happening in the beginning that is now happening again at the end, even if it's just a normal day, but things are different for your characters, for the setting, for any part of the story that mirror the ending that kind of caught my attention, is a great way to kind of wrap your story up and show like, okay, we're back to the flow of daily life or whatever, but things are different. What's different about your character? What's different about how they see the world? What's different about the world they're seeing? Things like that are great ways to kind of wrap your story up by showing that it moves on, but it's changed. And I thought that was a cool way to end a story that I hadn't quite considered ever writing yet. But also a good way to kind of check a few boxes and make sure that you are correctly ending the story and that the reader is getting the idea that you are trying to communicate.
Yeah, and I think another piece of advice we saw was, of course, the old classic surprise the reader.
Oh, surprise the reader.
Surprise, surprise.
Even profounder.
So yeah, all this stuff is pretty intense advice. I know you guys might not be prepared to hear all of these truths.
You come here for the hot takes.
I will say one piece that we did see, and I think it's very exclusive for a very specific type of ending, which is to stop at maximum tension. That I feel like is good for like a cliffhanger ending, but not very good for just about anything else. You know, it's not going to suit you for an epilogue. It's not going to suit you for an open ending. Um, anything along those lines, it's not going to feel resolved or anything like that. Maybe tragic, not necessarily hopeful. So it's very specific. I kind of want to get into like how you and I handle this because I just feel like the common advice is very placid.
I think that's fine, but want to make one quick point. Like when you're going to do the ending at maximum tension and everything, it should still feel final. If you still have a little bit of falling action and then true resolution for your issues and whatnot, you might as well consider just throwing that into the story. People are going to appreciate the climax and the excitement that comes from it. But if you don't, like what you said, it gets so close to the realm of being a cliffhanger. If there's no follow up to that, people are probably going not to. They're probably going to not remember your story so fondly, especially when it ends without very many questions being answered. And I would be loath to recommend you do a sequel if all you have is a smidge of falling action and then the ending too. So you do have to consider like which if your story is appropriate for an ending like maximum tension.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Where wanted me to start with personal stuff. So as we all know, I'm a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and his methods of things. And one thing he kind of passed on. This was more for speaking on like how to conclude a mystery story, but I think it kind of is relevant to just about any story, which is your ending should feel surprising yet inevitable, which means like there should be a little bit of mystery in there. We're like, oh, we didn't see that coming, but we kind of did see it coming, and we're glad that it happened the way we did, or it did. I think one thing that bothers me, particularly in like series stories or trilogies, because you're able to like receive feedback as you're producing the product, versus like a single story, is when writers feel like the audience is getting too much, inside baseball kind of thing, where it's like they're seeing too much behind the curtain. I have to now shift what I'm doing so that I can keep them on their toes. And I think that's just denying an intelligent audience member the satisfaction of like being there in the pocket with you as you're writing the story. It's like,
that's fair.
I created a little tiny mystery. You were there, you caught on to it quick, you saw you avoided the red herrings, you kept on to the clues, and now we're here at the end together. I'm glad you're there with me. I think that's how that relationship should go, not like, oh, you thought you had me, rug pull. I don't feel like that's satisfactory to anybody, and I think you run the risk of jacking up your own story.
Yeah, you don't. Subverting expectations is cool and all, but not when the only goal, like, is to do that. Just trying to be like, ooh, what's my next move gonna be? Is I feel like you run a terribly high odds of jacking up your story and the quality of it just to try to be surprising. Not a safe idea to let audience reactions mess with your head if that is how you're doing and you're ending it in pieces with a big overarching plot. Don't let it mess with your story overall. Like, let them be right. I'm with you in that camp, absolutely. Because that's payoff for your readers.
Yeah, it's payoff for them paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, this is the way I see it, is if you're going to subvert expectations, that's something that you need to be doing from the beginning, intentionally. Not everything needs to be a major swing for the fence kind of thing, but everything that you're doing to subvert needs to be a setup. The reason why, to continue with your analysis of The Sixth Sense, is because and you can see it in videos across the internet and stuff like that. There's so many little minute details that are throughout the entirety of the story to hint to you that go, hey, this person's not alive.
Yeah.
And it's so subtle and it's so minute, but it's done from the jump.
Yes.
It's done throughout the entire thing. And so you almost feel stupid at the end for not catching it, because you're like, holy shit,
It was the color red throughout the thing. It was spoiler warning if you somehow haven't seen that movie yet. But it was the color red. Every time it shows up, is you should be watching out for a hint that Bruce Willis is not among the living.
Well, it's not just that. It's the subtlety of using other things to hide other things.
Right.
Like the fact that Bruce Willis's character didn't have a ring on his finger, and that's because his wife is holding the ring.
I think that kind of actually is a really good point or a tie-in as far as storytelling and narrative goes to Brandon Sanderson's advice, because it's layered in from the beginning. Even if you don't catch it, it still leads to that notion. There's something is coming. Just you don't know what it is until you watch the movie. And I know that we reference cinema and everything like that a lot in here, but it is a method of storytelling, and you can tell a story in a book cinematically. So hopefully you guys don't hate us for doing that as often as we do, but I think it ties in well with Sanderson and what he said. Your ending should be surprising, but inevitable. There's a great sense of that at the end of The Sixth Sense. And another thing that is important is like, let's say you're on the last book. You're not going on with your story after this one. Are all the loose ends tied up? Have you told the story to its completion? There's no reason to stick around very long afterwards. Wrap it up.
Yeah. And, if part of your loose ends, if you have like a message of your story you're trying to convey, do so, I would say, in a means where it doesn't feel like you're being talked at or lectured to. Just have you made your point? End. Gracefully bow out and let the curtain fall, kind of thing. Don't hammer the point home, because then it kind of ruins what it is you're setting up. And to your point, we do discuss cinema a lot. It is a more accessible form of storytelling these days. People tend to link into videos and movies and TV more often. I think as writers and storytellers in general, I think we should be branching our scope of knowledge to all forms of storytelling, because it all kind of follows the same set of rules. Like, there might be little differences here and there, but it's all the fact that we can talk about movies or a TV show or even a video game, and those endings that we're talking about we'll easily find in a story, in a written novel somewhere. That tells you that this is all literature. It's all storytelling. It's all about the anatomy of a story. And so it shouldn't matter where you're getting your advice from or like what medium it's coming in. And so I'm really into that. Tying up loose ends, as you said, are extremely important, especially if it's the last thing.
Yeah.
But I would also argue, fight the battles that feel like they need to be fought. Not every loose end needs to be tied up, just the important ones.
The ones that are core to your story. And that was one thing that I wanted to say, like what you had said about the lecture hall. If you feel like you're getting to your ending and then you need to explain what the purpose of your story is, then it isn't about how you ended. It's about how you told the story prior. You need to go back and you need to make sure that that's communicated more clearly. And then if you've told the point of your book, if you've gotten from A to B, and you didn't have anything else to convey with your characters and the theme and the plot and the setting and everything else, then it is time to end it. And we had a note here about Tolkien and how long it took him to end The Lord of the Rings, but he earned it by rights of he earned the long ending by rights of how much he got into everything with all of his characters. He had a big cast of characters in his book, and you find out what just about all of them were up to until the moment they either passed away or whatever. And we all know that the Silmarillion says it all just kept going anyway. So he had that information.
Yeah, and to your point, I want to stress that it's not like the reason why he earned, in my opinion at least, why he earned the long ending isn't because he had a lot of people to talk about. It's because throughout the entirety of his story, he took the time to talk about a lot of things at length. He took time to describe things, to, ingratiate the reader into the world that he created. And so he earned that ending of like, I'm going to tell you everything that happens afterwards because I've been telling you everything about everything from the beginning.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, to do less than a full, like, let's talk about the next 60 years in this person's life, I feel like would have felt cheap, because we've learned everything else about him. Why not the future?
Yeah, and that's fair. But like again, it's earned. Did you earn your ending? Especially if you're gonna be going for one that is you got an epilogue or it's expanded, and in some cases even open, because otherwise it could. If you have an unearned ending that is open, like imagine if they hadn't gotten so deep into every question that they asked, and then they just stopped writing. That's what it's gonna feel like. Is that you just quit writing your story and decided to publish it anyway, and you don't want to do that either. That's not gonna bode well with your audience. You got anything else? I feel like we.
Well, I do want to tack on what you were saying there. I think the key piece when you're trying to when you feel like you're reaching your ending and you don't know exactly how to end it, I think two things you should ask yourself is, what kind of story am I telling? How have I been telling the story? And then what kind of ending am I going for? And have I worked in that direction? Like, have I set up my reader to similarly expect a twist? If I'm not, then you're probably just throwing one in there like a loose wrench to see what happens, and that's probably a mistake. But if you've set up some twists and you've kind of exposed your reader to expect these things, and they'll probably be satisfied with that kind of ending.
Yeah.
Or open-ended or anything like that. So if you're doing the setup and you're ready to do that, then that's when I would pull the trigger. But I would heavily reconsider if you're writing like some lovely fantasy fairy tale where everyone is kind of expecting them to live happily ever after, and then you're like, tragedy, you're probably going to lose some people and they're not going to appreciate that. But if you're kind of like mixing that stuff in and it sets up the tone for tragedy, then I think you'll be fine. So just do those two things. What kind of story have I been telling, and what kind of ending am I working towards? And I think you'll be all right.
Yeah. And just to get, I'm going to pick your brain on this last little nugget, Ryan. Do you think that there is a good sense of value in having your type of ending and where your ending is and everything planned out at when you're starting writing your story, or do you want to go in and figure out that kind of your method to end the story as you go?
I think personally, when I write, I tend to envision what the last chapter is going to be like, and that's generally what sets me up for a good tone in my head of like, what should I be setting up, what should I be, like I said, kind of hinting at my readers to expect as far as an ending is concerned.
I'm with you on that one, because you can't set it up if you don't know how your story is going to end. So unless you're wanting to go back and just sprinkle setup in, which that would terrify me. I would be worried that would be messing with the flow of the story. You should have an idea of how you want it to end, and there's a list of endings that you can look up and decide which one fits your story best. I think we've about beat that one to death, but you, viewer, if you have any sort of a canary for your coal mine when you know that your story is coming to an end and that it's time to start wrapping things up. Put it down in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and everything. Before we let you go, we're going to have our boss talk at you. You want to introduce him this time, Ryan?
Sir Dr. Duncan Cackleworth, Esquire.
Kindly lend me your ears, my dear Scribbles and Scratches, and if you've any sense about you, your imaginations as well. The Fitz of Writing has officially turned our lovely telltale writing prompts into a challenge. My idea, of course. What better way to stoke the fires of creativity than with a bit of friendly blood sport betwixt cohorts? To join the fray, submit your tale in the comments of the monthly Telltale prompt, or if you're too timid to toss your words into the abysmal ether of the internet, simply email us with the heading Telltale or TAT for short, and don't forget to add the month. Fear not, you will not miss our monthly post, for we shall repost it every week. At the end of the month, your gracious hosts shall pick their favorite and provide the winner with a simple yet wondrous audiovisual package of the chosen tale. So, what are you waiting for? Spill some ink, strike the like, and semper scribe.
Yeah, we're really excited about the Telltale contest and how we've sort of tweaked that thing. It went from weekly, and then that was getting difficult, and now we only have to make one per month that is unrelated to an author that's coming out on our Wednesday episodes to market their books. These are contests for you, our author community, the Scribbles but not the Scratches, or the Scratches but not the Scribbles. I'm not sure. But if you want us to make you a quick video with the text from your writing so that you have something that is both audio and visual that you can put all over the internet so people can get a sample of your writing, submit. Keep going. Every month we're going to have a new picture out there, and we will pick the one we want. I don't think we've gotten one so far that we could turn into a Telltale, but hopefully by the time this video goes up, we will have. If not, get out there. Help us help you. With marketing materials.
Yeah. How do we end these?